Monopoly. You've played it, maybe you've even won. Maybe you're like me and you've rage quit a few times. But what if I told you I ran thousands of Monopoly simulations and they reveal exactly why the rich keep getting richer. Today, we're gonna be digging into the science of wealth and figuring out how we can all flip the script, or maybe we're too far into late stage capitalism to become wealthy. Hi, my name is Rue, and today we're talking about exactly why the rich keep getting richer using Monopoly as the perfect example. Let's dive in. So even before I wanted to make this video, I had a question that I kept asking myself. Does where you start really matter? And if it did, how much of an impact did it have in someone's life? So I decided to code a Monopoly simulator and ran 3 separate experiments. 10,000 games total between 4 people playing the game of Monopoly. In scenario 1, this was a fair fight. Everyone was equal, $1,500 to start, no properties, same dice, and the starting point was no different than an OG Monopoly game. And after that 3,333 games, the wins were split about 25% each. One person got 26%, the other person got 24%, the other one person got 27%, and the other person got 23% wins. And this is the meritocracy we're sold. Work hard, play strategically, and win big. And in theory, if we ran these simulations over and over, everyone can and everyone will win eventually, which sounds kind of nice, right? You play your best and you win. Now, scenario 2 was a little different, and this was a scenario where one player gets a boost. Basically, one player just starts out with $5,000, which is over 3 times more than the others at $1,500 apiece. And the result, they won 99% of the time. Basically, total domination. Now, of course, they were allowed to trade amongst each other, and that one player just helped out more than the others because, well, he had the financial means to do so. He was also able to take more risks, buy more properties, attend more auctions, right? The others just didn't stand a chance. And the question was, well, when one of the players got into a pinch with their rents or over leveraging themselves to buy properties, who was the most likely candidate to bail them out? The rich guy. Rather than getting $X for mortgaging back to the bank, the rich player would step in, buy an undesired piece of property for the original purchase price or even double what they bought it for, which allowed them to look like the hero while acquiring properties on their turn and anytime someone needed the cash. Now, of course, if this was a real human game, people would know he started out with more and maybe envy or despise his situation. But we're talking about simulated games of Monopoly with AI, so they didn't have these emotions. They just did. Now, there were some games where this person lost, but it was literally a handful of games, usually just bad luck. But what I realized after running the simulation is this is someone with a few $100,000 to $1 million in their bank account versus someone that's making $100,000 a year. So I had to test the other scenario. The one I knew was the one that's starting to play out in modern day capitalism. And this is where things get really interesting. Basically, the idea was to simulate a billionaire playing against someone in the middle class. So here's how that went. And it probably won't come to any surprise as to who won and how many times. And the rules are as follows. And this is scenario 3. The rich player gets $5,000, just like before, but they also get to start off with half the board of properties at the start. They also get a steady cash flow of the usual $250 when they pass go, but instead of $250, they get $1,000 on every turn. Basically, this would be like having advisors who are able to give more favorable luck on dice rolls or paying off politicians to get more favorable laws passed to benefit you. And on top of all of that, if it couldn't get any worse, they also got twice the dice rolls. Basically, they can move twice as fast. So for every player's 1 turn, they get 2 turns. The others, well, they just started off with $1,500 each. No properties, no luck, and the rich player crushed them every single time. It was not a contest. But here's where it gets interesting. I reran this scenario 10,000 more times with a slight twist. The twist was the little guys teamed up. They don't want to trade with the rich player at all. They are going to pay cheap rents between them, meaning like they could literally decide rent, and they can also play with pooled cash. And because there were more of them, the rich player's win rate fell to 37.1%, which is still insane considering that's well above the 25%, and it took all of their work together to do so, but it's also insane progress. It was cool to see that teamwork dented the lead, but that head start, money, assets, speed was still an absolute beast. And this isn't just a game of Monopoly, it's the world we live in today. Let's step off the board and see how it actually plays out in real life. And before we get into that, the first thing you gotta remember is the origin of Monopoly, because it's really, really fascinating. Monopoly wasn't just some random idea. It began as the landlord's game in 1903, created by Elizabeth Magie to show how wealth piles up for the few. Funny enough, the game she originally created, and maybe this isn't so funny, but the game she originally created was a way to to mock capitalism and its functions. Only she was alive to see today. Oxfam says that the richest 1% own 44% of global wealth, up from 38% a decade ago. But how'd this happen? History's dice was never fair. For over 100 years, we've been playing the game just like scenario 3, but for most of us, we're just the players, not the actual rich. And most of us aren't playing together. In fact, we've been sort of divided, the reds and the blues. And I think this is where we could rewind to the US after the Civil War. You see, industrial giants like Rockefeller didn't just work hard and make the right decisions. They had capital, connections, and laws tilted their way. Oil monopolies, railroad deals, land grabs, while most folk were simple sharecroppers or factory workers. One bad day from owning and having nothing. That's the difference between the $5,000 start versus the $1,500 start. Then there's redlining. In the 1930s, banks marked black and immigrant neighborhoods risky. No loans, no homes, no wealth. And a 2018 study by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition found redlined areas still lag in homeownership today. Meanwhile, white families built equity. The Federal Reserve likes to put it like this: kids born in the top 10% have a 70% shot at staying rich. But the bottom 50%, just 4% of those kids actually climb out. Even though we think of now as the tough time to climb up, unfortunately, history didn't level the field. It slowly built the gap. And now we have the science of advantage and why it snowballs. Let's take Warren Buffett as the perfect example. You see, at 11 years old, he buys his first stock. By 30, he's a millionaire. Now, $100 billion. Is that because of talent? Well, absolutely. But also early cash, a stable home, his dad being a politician, a businessman, and an investor, which gave Warren room to fail, which compounded into him taking more risk, being more free with his time, and gave him the opportunity for more adventurous pursuits, not just money. That's the monopoly cash drip, where advantage compounds. And a 2019 Nature study calls this the Matthew effect. To he who has more will be given. You see, there was a study done where researchers tracked 1,000 people over decades, where early wins like a good school or a small inheritance ballooned into massive gaps. A 2021 paper from Princeton found that wealth at age 20 predicts your net worth at 50, better than your IQ or work ethic. So if you start off poor or simply lose early, you're stuck clawing back. And it's not just cash, it's actual psychology. Privilege fuels risk-taking. With a safety net, you're way more likely to launch a startup or buy stocks. No safety net, you feel paralyzed. And I think that's one of the big problems today. But let's bring it closer to home. Let's say you're 16, your buddy's got SAT tutors, internships, a car from mom and dad, while you're flipping burgers, sharing a laptop with 4 siblings, same potential, same school, same teachers, but completely different tracks. Or let's say you're 30, looking for a new job. One resume screams Ivy League and the other state school. What's interesting is that a 2022 Harvard Business Review study showed that elite grads get 60% more callbacks. And that is a pretty huge increase. And personally, I felt this growing up. We weren't broke, but we weren't loaded. Friends had ski trips, new gear, no stress. I was working for some extra cash. And it's a subtle difference, but the differences stack up. But so what? Life's unfair. But just like in Monopoly, you don't need a silver spoon to win. You can win as a person starting with less. Remember that having a plan will increase your odds of winning tremendously. And here is how to play. First things first, you gotta compound early. It's not about the money per se, it's about the habits that you build. So you can invest, let's say $50 a month in an S&P 500 index at 7% average returns, which you'll probably get 8 to 10. That's $40,000 in 30 years. Next, you gotta escape the debt vortex. Basically, just don't have revolving credit card interest debt. 18%, 25%, 30%, it's a wealth shredder. Refinance, pay it down, unlock your money. But even more importantly than that, you have to have the skills over the money. Invest in building a secondary hobby that maybe makes you some money, which is having skills over the cash. Learn coding on YouTube. Learn negotiation from a podcast. Learn how to sell from your day job. Skills are assets. Hoard them and use them wisely. And this is one of the points from the video, is to team up. You see, in my simulations, collaboration slash the rich player's edge. Find your people, find your tribe, share resources, trade tips, investment decisions, why you made them, talk money, talk business. It will change your life. But the last and most important thing of all is to remember to play the long game. Bezos got a $250,000 boost from his parents for Amazon. You save $300 a month for 5 years. That's $18,000 to bet on you. Now, of course, if If you have better income, do more, but at least start there. And I have a question for you. Do you want to know how to actually become a rich player in this Monopoly example, except, well, in real life? Well, FundRise is an app that I found that allows you to actually do that. And they're not even sponsoring this video. I just really like their platform. Basically, what they do is they allow you to buy fractionalized real estate in private equity companies like OpenAI, Canva, and other small startups. And you can get started with just $10. And that allows you to grow wealth like the rich, which 15, 20 years ago wasn't even an option. And they have an exclusive promotion right now where they're giving me $50 to give away to you guys for the first 10 people that use my code below. I get it. You might think that the rules are already extremely rigged for the rich and there's no way for you to get ahead. Well, remember, Oprah was born broke in Mississippi. No cash, no trust fund parents to lean on. She bet on herself. Grit, skills, hustle. Now she's a billionaire. Or this guy, just an average Joe named Jose. He's an LA immigrant I met, no English. He washed dishes, learned HVAC repair online, saved every penny. Today, he owns a business worth millions and millions of dollars. And a 2020 American Economic Review study, self-made millionaires often beat the odds through education and persistence. The deck was stacked, they reshuffled it. And look, I know, life is a rigged Monopoly game, or at least it feels that way. And wealth, history, timing, they matter. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't participate in this game. Start where you are, play smarter, make your own luck. The rich don't win because they're geniuses, they win because they started ahead. So start now. And if you want more ways to crack the system and be able to buy more properties like in the game of Monopoly, subscribe because we're figuring this out together. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.